Hi, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Own Your Essence podcast, where we get to have deep transformational conversations with some of my favorite people. I'm your host, April DeMille, and as you can see, I have two of my favorite buddies here with me, co hosts Lee and Stephanie. If y'all want to introduce yourselves.
Yeah,
Go
hey.
ahead.
I'm like, who's going? I don't know. Um, my name's Lee Walczak, and I have been on a few episodes with April before, obviously, so some of you might recognize me. So good to be back.
Yay!
Yay, Lee! And I'm
Yay!
Stephanie, and I've been on this podcast twice. Once with
Yeah.
both of you, and then once with April.
Yes.
And my bio keeps changing as I kind of figure out who I am, but I am a writer. That's one thing, and a podcaster, so
So those are the things that are staying the same for now.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. That's solid. I love it. So, and as I said, these are two of my favorite humans. So we came together today because, because my one person canceled and my two buddies like came in to save my ass. So that's always great for having friends. Thank you guys.
Yay.
But also, like, we are all friends and we like to shoot the shit whenever we get a chance. So we're here to do that. And one of the conversations or one of the subjects that had been orbiting in my life in the last few days kind of I guess it all came together last night. So if y'all don't mind, I'm just going to kind of spit some of that out. I have a really dear friend, love the lady to death, and she stopped by last night. Missy, if you're listening, it's because I'm talking about you. That's not her name, but I'm going to save her name for privacy purposes. Anyway, she was here. I got to visit with her. Love her to death. She's one of my buddies. And we were sitting here talking about the podcast. We were talking about some of the things going on in her world, and she asked me, like, how's the podcast going? And I was like, yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, I'm learning a lot, getting to meet cool people and network, and I'm really loving it. And it lights me up, right? At the end of the day, it lights me up. But in this massive lesson that's unfolding with this creative project has come a question: am I compromising or am I shrinking? And this came up because she had shared some stuff with me last night where we had to ask her the same question. And I was like, I said that's a tough one because as much as I'd like to be like, oh, I have, good boundaries and I try really hard not to shrink and shy away from my truth, I think we're all in a world where we're constantly being asked to do that, right? And my one of my examples of that was I'm not always so politically correct. I have very strong language and I am totally here for it. I'm going to embrace it, right? And you guys already know that about me. Um, but I'm a little backwoods. So sometimes I tend to be not politically correct, apparently. And so luckily, Lee is really great about that. And he has caught me on a couple occasions and been like, hey, man, you might want to fix that. So thank you, Lee, for always having my back because I might sound like a monster sometimes. Otherwise, but true story. Um, I was sharing a story on a podcast the other day, and I was talking about how, in the midst of my dark night of soul and this massive psychic medium awakening I was going through, and I was I hear the voices, I see the visions, I would see spirits with my physical eyes. All kinds of stuff happens, right, Lee? Like we know how this
Yeah.
works, right? And so, with that being said, I remember in that raw moment just telling the lady, I really didn't know what was wrong with me. I had everybody in my world telling me I'm crazy, which that's one of those terms, right, Stephanie? And then
Yes.
I had to really consider, is there something wrong with me? Am I fucking schizo? Right? Like, am I schizophrenic? I'm hearing voices, I'm seeing things. Is there actually like something happening with me that I don't understand? And there was, right? But I said it just like that, super raw, super vulnerable, just being in the moment of this is what I was really genuinely going through, right? I had to really question my sanity. The people around me were trying to figure out like what best way to support me, and and that's if they were even going to support me because they also thought I was crazy. So in that moment, having that conversation with her, I had to sit there after the fact, after I ended the podcast, and I had to go, do I have to go edit that out because I'm going to sound like a dick, right? I'm going to sound like I made a comment that somebody might not hear the rest of the context about, and it might sound really insensitive. Or am I honoring my truth by sharing that true, raw expression, right? So where's the compromise and where am I shrinking to people please the masses? And so that subject seems to be a powerful one for me right now and in the world. So I kind of want to like get y'all's takes on that.
I remember the first time we've always used the word crazy growing up in the 80s and 90s. But as psychology started talking about what was crazy and understanding that, I remember saying it, and I did get people saying, you shouldn't use that word. And me being highly, like, I want to respect people and I have a lot of empathy, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't use that word. But it's also just, you can't just switch it off as that's what you're used to saying. So I was kind of like, is it really bad to say this word? But also, like, I'm trying to find something else because it's not technically crazy. But it's also like, what do words mean to us as well, right? How we use words, we all have different understandings and kind of meanings of what we're saying. So, yeah, it's very complex, I think.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
well, I think that's a good point. I think it's complex and it's like a multi-layered thing. Like I was talking about before we jumped on, I think we do live in a climate, I guess, right now where there are people who are very triggered by certain things. And I'm not trying to negate the fact that we can say things intentionally or unintentionally that are harmful feeling to other people. So I'm not trying to sweep that under the rug and being like, let's just say whatever we want to say whenever, because that's not the intention either. But I do think we live in a climate where people um, tend to be very triggered about certain things, and I'm not labeling that right or wrong. I think it just is. I think, though, for me personally, when I come up against a trigger, for me, it's less about trying to control somebody else's behavior. And it's more about trying to look inward and figure out why I'm kind of coming up against this in a certain way and then integrate that. Again, I'm not talking about someone
Yeah.
being outwardly intentionally harmful. I think that's different. Like if someone comes up to you and blatantly insults you and is like, hey, this about you or whatever,
Yeah.
or
There's a difference between
there's a difference.
belligerence and having awareness of your own triggers.
Right. And I think I can still hold on to feelings of being hurt, like we were talking about even before. There are certain words that when people use them as insults, that I do find it, for me personally, to be a bit more inappropriate. And I think there are interlinks to my own story and about how I process that. And so I do think it is multi-layered, but I think just generally speaking about, when we're triggered by something, I think for me at least, it's always good to kind of start with, well, why am I coming up against this? And at the end of the day, I think it's interesting because we can try to educate and inform people. And I think that's amazing and great. Like I'm always trying to evolve and learn and grow and listen to other people's opinions, whether I agree with them or not, really. But at the end of the day, we can't control other people's behavior either. And we do live in this kind of climate of like cancel culture and all this stuff, which I find interesting for that reason, because I feel like there's a piece of that aims to control other humans,
Right.
right?
Because it's land of the free, freedom of speech, but let's cancel everybody that actually has freedom of speech. So whatever.
And
Right.
it doesn't allow for grace because I know things that I said years back from just like my
Mhm.
own upbringing, and I didn't really have any malicious intent.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, oh, that was not good to say. But I also is grateful for the people who gave me grace because they kind of were like, okay, she doesn't really understand what she's saying. Because I was
Yeah.
still a nice person trying to, you know what I mean? And so when we can give grace to others as well, rather than just automatically canceling or like you're saying, getting triggered.
Mhm.
I'm very
Yeah. And
grateful for those people who allowed that for me.
Yeah, and I feel like that helps us learn discernment too, because like Lee, you had a good point when you said there's a difference between somebody that's being belligerent and attacking you
Mm,
versus someone that is going to sit there and really do the work and be like, does this actually hurt me? Or is this just a wound that I have to look at for other factors that have played into my upbringing, right?
right.
And so that I think is one of the ways we learn discernment too.
Yeah. And I think that can get lost sometimes because, again, I do think there are things like I can be having a conversation with someone, and like I said, maybe they use a certain word that I do find inappropriate. They're not directing it at me, but they're using it in a way of kind of like, this is abnormal or this is dysfunctional. And when, maybe I feel like it shouldn't be used that way. And I do think there needs to be a space held too where we can have conversations with people and be like, hey, you know what, like, I know this probably wasn't your intention, and I know you, and but when you say that, this is how I kind of feel about this. And if that person then comes back repeatedly and kind of ignores that and it's like, well, I think that in a personal dynamic is definitely something to look at. Like, how is this person responding to my communication? But my point, I guess, with the cancel piece too, or the cancel culture piece, is that, like Stephanie said, it doesn't allow grace and it doesn't allow room for communication or conversation. And I feel like that's how we grow. I don't think everyone needs to agree to be able to communicate. So,
Mhm.
Sorry, my mic was off. So it's like just controlling the dynamic instead of, hey, we need some time here to see why these adjustments need to be made, if so,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
that's different than just, you know, um, canceling with no. I did laugh and I was like, luckily, I only have like 5 audience members, so it's like, who the fuck's gonna hear my mouth anyway? So like, so whatever. So like, but still, right? It's
Yeah.
like I'm not that worried about it. But like, you did have to call me on it once, Lee. I think you did actually even say, what did you say when you just said it a minute ago? But you were like, "Hey, listen, I you were like,
Yeah.
I know you, and I know you didn't
Yeah.
probably mean it this way." That's basically how you approached it. And I was like, "Oh yeah. Oh yeah, maybe you're right." So I did end up editing that one comment that time. But but then when I said this schizo thing in the moment of a real raw narrative that had unfolded in my life,
Mm.
um, I had to sit with it. And I was like, was that insensitive? Was that nasty? Or was that me making an attack? And I don't think so. I think I was genuinely embracing the place I was in that story, in that moment, and being really raw about it. And I feel like I would shrink if I changed that. Does that make sense?
And sometimes you don't even have the words.
Yeah. Well, and
Like
yeah.
you're like schizo, okay, that came to my mind, or crazy, or whatever the word could be. And then when people call you out, I'm like, okay, well, bah,
Well,
I don't
right.
know what else word to use in that moment, maybe.
Right. And that's actually true because when you consider that we're being timed on these podcasts, we're moving, not that there's not editing magic, but we don't think like that when we're running, right? We're not thinking that way. So we're doing that. And then if you have any autoimmune stuff like I do, brain fog happens, you lose your vocabulary, and sometimes words just get spewed out that aren't even supposed to go there. And that doesn't make an excuse by any means, but sometimes that does happen.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's also that different, and I try to like, I love talking about this with people, like the explanations and excuses. So sometimes things can be explained, doesn't mean it excuses, or it's just like, but that's what it was, right? Like, for example, my dad is very certain. I'm pretty sure he's on the spectrum. And I've had many situations with stuff, and people have been very offended. And I'm like, okay, I understand. And he doesn't really mean that. And then they're like, well, he shouldn't. I'm like, I know, but if I can explain that this is where he's at, doesn't excuse his behavior, and yet it can explain kind of why. So if you're able to maybe have forgive and have some grace, but you don't have to. Oh my gosh, it's
No,
all
but
these things are
that's,
so very complex. But you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
explanations and excuses, not the same thing.
totally. But also with that in mind, because one of my favorite humans is also autistic, and he does have meltdowns and spin outs, and sometimes he will say things that to me would be like, whoa, that is inappropriate, not okay. And it's because he is so wired differently with his neurodivergent brain that he's not in a place to receive understanding, reason, whatever. It doesn't matter. He's spinning out. There is no reasoning happening anywhere because he's on shutdown, right? And so with that, even with that in mind, and I'm learning how to um, approach that with also more understanding and grace. Um, but then that makes me wonder how many autistic people or people in, ADHD, autism, neurodivergence community, whatever, um, how many of them are being masked to people please the typicals because, hey, this isn't okay. You have to do it this way, right? And where's the middle ground there? Um, and I have to consider that because I have been diagnosed ADHD. My kids are ADHD. My son's ADHD. So it's not like we've all masked so much, and that could be why this is coming up, where I'm having to revisit these subjects because I'm like, where are we compromising? Where are we shrinking? And I'm just going to shift gears real quick because my friend had said to me when she was here, she gave me we talked about an example. She goes, babe, if you were invited to daytime TV to whatever about for psychic stuff, medium, whatever, who cares what for, right? Um, and they wanted you as a guest, and there's all kinds of benefits for them and you to do that. Would you stop cussing? And I was like, yeah, that's a great question. Because even with Stephanie building my speaker sheet right now, what do I have on there, Stephanie?
Um, Caution note about,
About my mouth.
yeah, and maybe I'm not for you if you don't like
Yeah.
that or
I said,
something.
that's a great question to my friend because I said, that's something where I would have to understand the difference between compromise and shrinking because even on my speaker sheet, I have like a little asterisk area that says, I value raw expression. I have strong language. I don't like to filter my stories. Um, so if you have strict policies around that, I'm not for you. Period. I'm not your person. I'm going to offend your audience. Basically, that's what it says. So like if it was daytime TV, would it be any different? Maybe. Maybe it's a different factor, but also they have editing, so they can just bleep me a lot.
And they've had to for certain people who do that.
Yeah, they've had to bleep people.
Celebrities.
So would I compromise? Would I go, okay, there might be um this might be a place where I have to be a little more mindful, but then am I still shrinking? I don't know, right? I really don't know. Like at my nanny role, am I dropping fuck all day long around the nanny kids? No, but guess what? They're saying fuck in front of me. And they're 5 and 9, or they're 6 and 9, and they say more cuss words than I do, right? Actually, I don't cuss in front of them. I have cussed in front of their parents, but that's because we're adults having conversations, right? But like when it's just me and the kids, I don't cuss in front of them. But that's because that's what the parents have asked of me, right? Like it's just kind of goes with that role. But again, at what point am I shrinking? And does this enable children because it's not prepping them for real life? Right? I
Yeah.
learned more dirty shit from my 12-year-old son that he had learned from school than I ever knew. True story. Gross stuff. Stephanie just had to Google it actually because I told her about it. I was like, what? So
Yeah.
like I'm just so like there's so much of it like circling in my head right now. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm still learning to discern and step into my truth too. And if I feel like I'm shrinking too much, it's a no for me.
Yeah.
Can
I
I
mean,
compromise? Sure.
yeah. I mean, I get that. And I think I think we can meet in the middle sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like, I think if we're meeting in the middle and we're adhering to someone else's reasonable, healthy expectation of the space that they're holding for their environment, like if it was daytime TV and the expectation is that you don't curse a lot because it's daytime TV, I think it's okay to meet in that space and be like, yeah, okay, you know what? I see your expectation of this. I understand it. And for that reason, I can meet you in the middle and maybe not curse as much or curse at all or whatever it is, right? I think that to me, at least personally, feels different than shrinking, but I can definitely see other situations where it might feel like shrinking if there was this kind of like, well, I can't, I'll just use the cursing example, I guess. Like I can't curse because like there's this, expectation that I don't, and this is kind of who I, in a different situation, maybe, right? But like, I think context matters for that reason too. Like, what's the situation? Who's involved? What is the expectation? What is even maybe the rules around the experience? Rules just being like an expectation of someone else controlling their behavior in a certain way. That's how I define a rule. Is like if I'm trying to control someone else's behavior, and sometimes rules are necessary for different things, right? But I think context just matters sometimes. So like, I think it's about asking ourselves too in the situation, like, do I actually feel like I'm shrinking or can I meet this in the middle and this can be okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think too, like in a world where no matter what you say, you're always going to piss someone off, so you might as well be you because you're not always going to make everybody happy.
True.
Somebody's always going to have a fucking stick up their ass about something.
That
Like
actually reminds me. Oh, sorry.
but it's true, right? Like everybody's at war with each other and out to, whatever. Everybody's walking on eggshells these days and it's stupid. But like with that in mind, it's a huge disservice for you and the community that you want to be around to not be as truthful and authentic about yourself as possible, right? So it's like again, it's just really hard. But can compromise happen? Yeah, sure. Um, maybe not always easily, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
experienced that with because when I started leaving kind of my religion, I was saying the F word a lot more because I was
that's because you
angry.
just got your wings. You were
Yes.
like, oh, it's like trying out your wings for the first time. You got to use them a lot until you get used to them.
Yes. And now I use it more when I'm like trying to make a point. But I remember my cousin was like, "Oh, that's such a harsh way of saying things." And I was like, "Okay." And I did wonder, do I shrink or do I not say it around them because they don't like it and not really it offends them, but they were just like, "Ooh." But then I'm also just being me. I could minimize, but I'm also not going to stop every one of them that comes out. Do you know what I mean? And I remember my sister, what's that guy's name? Gary Vanderkey or Vanderchi or something. He's a motivational speaker and he
oh
uses
yeah.
the F bomb every 2 seconds.
Oh, well, I'm going to look him up. He's already my favorite person.
Vander, oh my gosh. I'll think of it after we're done.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, and so my sister was like, I like to follow him, but I stopped because he swears so much. And he addressed that with people. He was like, people don't like it, but this is me. And if you don't
Yeah.
like it, you can unfollow. And so it
Yeah.
was kind of like, I love that.
Well, yeah, because here's what it does. It puts people back in the position to be responsible for themselves. He's not
Yeah.
bending to make you happy. If you don't want to hear him, unfollow him, don't go to his shows, don't be in his audience. That's your responsibility to remove yourself from that connection, right?
Yeah, you could just
So,
like follow him and be mad all the time.
yeah,
Or you could just like unfollow him and like there you go.
or
You
you
both
could
have
be
choice.
responsible adults and change your environment like any other normal fucking adult has to do, right? So like it's again, that's where we have to be mindful of our triggers, right, Lee? That's kind of like
Yeah.
what you were saying.
Is it
Yeah.
Gary Vanderchuck or Vandervee? Anyway,
I think
something like
it's
that.
inner check. I think
Check.
you're right.
Okay.
In check.
You
I
know,
think.
you know what I
I
mean.
think. But yeah.
I
Um,
actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that's okay. I was gonna say, just as a caveat too, I'm thinking about this as we're talking. I had mentioned like a rule being me trying to control someone else's behavior. I don't actually like the word control, so I'm gonna redact that or retract that. Trying
Okay.
to direct someone else's behavior. So a rule to me is kind of like because I'm very sensitive to smells, right? If I tell someone you cannot wear perfume around me,
Oh, that's such a good example, dude. It
Yeah.
really is. Actually, it's perfect.
Yeah.
That's a bit more of a rule. And that's why I say they can be necessary sometimes, because I know earlier I was talking about like trying to control other people's behavior and that being inappropriate. Sometimes it can be necessary for our own well-being in whatever way, shape, or form. Whether someone adheres to that or not is not our choice or responsibility. I
No,
wanted to clarify that,
but this is such a good example because I smell like a French whore. Like I have all the perfumes, all the candles in my house all the time. I am such a smelly girl. Like I'm into it all, right? In my car, everywhere I go, there's smells everywhere, right? And so we have had this talk where I will never, I could not go meet Lee in person
no.
and have my strong shampoos or my perfumes or anything because he would die,
Yeah.
right? He
No
would
feel.
literally fucking die. So, so like this is a perfect example of where we go, are we compromising or are we shrinking? And in a situation like that, obviously you mean a lot to me and I'm not trying to, you know, have my presence hurt yours in any way. So we would find a middle ground and I'd be like, okay, that day I won't wear deodorant or perfume or have strong shampoos in my, right? Like it's all the things, right? And
Yeah.
I'll wash with like non-scented laundry soap and like it would be that those kinds of compromise, but it is a compromise, right?
Right.
In because it's what I have to do it for like a couple hours because that's what I would want to do so I could hang out with you. That's different
Right. Right.
because there's something I'm receiving from that too. And that might be the trick is there an exchange or is this a requirement that leaves you feeling
Yeah.
depleted?
I have a
Yeah.
great example for that.
Oh, I want to
So
hear it.
I used to work at a bank in the back office, and after a while, like the early 2000s, um, I had coworkers who would get migraines from perfume. And I
Mhm.
used to wear a lot of perfume in those days, and I stopped because I worked there. We just weren't allowed to wear anymore. It eventually became a rule, which even managers broke. But because it was harming others, the scents were giving the migraines, or, you know, I got the flu really bad when I lived in Toronto. And ever since then, I could not, I would start coughing around too intense perfumes.
Mhm.
So when it's something like that, I'm like, you don't have to put on perfume to go to work. So that was like, okay, right? But then one of my coworkers, she would just use shampoo and it was scented. So another coworker was like, your shampoo is bothering me. And it's like, can you really regulate shampoo
Mhm.
like you can regulate, you can't just tell everyone you have to go buy non-scented shampoo for the one person in the office. But you know what I mean? Like that was a little bit like really intense
Yeah, like it's
versus the
one to
perfume where you don't need to put on perfume, but you do need to shampoo your hair. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And unless the company was going to provide everybody unscented shampoo just for work, where's the line that you draw?
right. And it caused, oh boy, that I worked with a lot of women in that time. Our department was women. Whoa. There was a lot of cattiness and stuff, which is funny now, but
Oh God.
a lot of that going
I
Yes.
have definitely worked around a lot of women and mhm. Yep. I'm just gonna
It was always
say
nice to have men interspersed. When we would have some guys
totally.
there, it just changed the environment. And we're
Well,
like,
because
okay,
guys in general, I'm gonna say general, not all guys.
yeah,
I've met some idiots, but like guys in general are not near as dramatic and fucking stupid as women. And I don't care how politically correct that sounds. I'm not gonna edit that, by the way.
well, we
I'm
get
not
so
gonna
much
do it.
drama.
Lee
Like, there's a
laughs. He
lot of
just
like,
laughs. I'm like, I'm keeping that full
I'm
stop.
doing it.
Full stop. It's staying.
I was just laughing because you added on that. I don't care. I'm keeping that like as you're processing it in real time.
That one's staying.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say all women are like that, but like based on the experiences I was having back then and the type of women that were in my life back then, absolutely gonna stand by that.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was that person too. I love the gossip. I was like, oh, who do we hate today? And
Yeah.
now I don't enjoy that environment, but I did at one point.
Yeah. I'm not a fan.
Uh,
So one other thing I wanted to add to this because I thought it was important. I don't know why, but I guess it just kind of goes with the story. I one time this was actually a client that I'd done some reading readings for a few years ago. Love the lady to death. She was really great. Got a great sense of humor. Super into the spiritual metaphysical stuff. Um, kind of run in the same communities here and there. So we bumped into each other online. And actually, she had seen me. I think she had seen me because she had seen me talking on Melissa Corder's Coffee and Cards back in the day, like
Oh,
years
yeah.
ago, which is actually, I was telling Stephanie, that's kind of how me and you started.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, that's when she had come to me for her first reading. And so I was friends with her. We ended up being friends, right? Like getting connected on Facebook and chatting and becoming a little more involved. And one day in like 2022, we kind of reconnected for a minute. Hey, how's everything in your world? And I was going through a lot of stuff in 2022. And I shit you not, this lady said to me point blank, do you think that your world is so filled with negativity because you have such a foul mouth? And I was like, wow, she went there. I mean, bravo, dude. Like that took a lot of courage for sure. But she was, she said that because I choose to not filter my expressions and use strong language, she was certain that I was attracting negativity because I had a foul mouth. And I was like, well, if we follow the logic behind that, um, how does that explain my negative upbringing when I was a child and not using foul words? How does that explain, like it doesn't make sense at all, right? And it's not true because I don't believe in repressing. That's actually what can create more harm is when we're repressing and trying to shrink and things like that. And I remember saying to her, yeah, I absolutely, that's not a truth for me. That might be a truth for you, and I can appreciate that we can agree to disagree, right? And that's kind of where I left it. But she and I never continued a friendship after that, because for me, that showed me where she was in her journey, and I believed her, and I left her there, and that's not where I was in mine, right? And also, let's not forget, based on our age and her age, like my age, her age, there is a patriarchal like conditioning. And in that upbringing, they teach that it's not feminine or soft or elegant if you use curse words, right? So it's that whole patriarchal, like, uh,
Sugar and spice.
be the sugar, be unheard.
Mm.
We want to look at you, but don't open your mouth. Right? It's that really superficial pig-minded manhood, right? Stuff. And so I'm just like, yeah, so I get why she would think that and why that applies to her world, but that's a world that I evolved out of a long time ago. So for me, I was like, yeah, no, that doesn't work for me, but I appreciate it. Thanks. Right? Like, and that was our done point.
I want to add to that too. I don't know. I won't speak to the specific situation because I don't know this woman and or anything like that. But I think sometimes too, we as people have this tendency to try to put the blame on the person experiencing the negativity because we are so uncomfortable with
Totally.
sitting with the idea of negativity or something that feels, for lack of a better way of putting this, uncomfortable to us. And I am a firm believer in the spiritual realm of like we do create certain things in our experience and all of that. I think our soul creates different things. I think we create different things through how we show up. But that doesn't mean that every day is going to be rainbows and unicorns. It doesn't mean that we're not going to go through certain things because of course we are. We're human. So I think people like to kind of pin the blame in any way that they can on the person because then they don't have to go there themselves and think, well, what if I end up in a situation where I feel really negative? It
Yeah.
kind of cuts off that inner communication. I mean, it happens with chronic illness stuff all the
Oh,
time.
totally. Yeah. Well, and also even with abuse, because like how many times in, when you're talking domestic abuse and stuff like that, people will be like, what'd you do? What'd you
Mm,
do to get hit? What'd you
yeah.
do? And so then now the victim is the problem instead of keeping the perpetrator accountable, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing. It's just like escapism. It's just awful.
And I think there's a lot of parroting. So
Yeah.
when I was in religion, like when we would hear these Christian phrases, you would just say it to other people. Like, oh, what was something? God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I
Horseshit.
used to say that all the time, not,
Uh,
but I would just hear that from the leaders, and I'm like,
yeah.
yes, this is the truth. And then when you dig into it and you're like, oh, or you experience it yourself. So there's a lot of that kind of talk, especially with the entrepreneurial spaces, coachy spaces, personal growth, and whatever.
Hmm.
Manifesting, like, what do you manifest? You manifested something bad because of this. And it's like, or um, this is like our soul contract that we came to experience this, or it was whatever the situation, you don't know. And I do think a lot of people parrot it without, like you're saying,
Thinking.
they don't sit with it, but also they just hear it. And a lot of us are like sheep, right? So we're just like, I heard this and it sounds good, so I'm going to say it to everyone.
Right. Right. It was the
Yeah.
best explanation for that. But you bring up a good point because even with manifesting, right, in the communities of the healer world, right, this is where a lot of spiritual bypassing and that love lights language is so fucking toxic because people will go around going, oh, if your world sucks, then it's your fault because you created that. Yeah, that's so not true.
And they don't take responsibility for things. Like, oh, things are going to happen as they are, so I'm not going to vote or do this. And I'm like, okay, well, you still have to like do stuff,
Yeah,
and you can believe that everything is working out. That's fine, but you don't just go, well, I'm just sitting here like happy in my little bubble and everything's going to work out. You
yeah,
know what I mean? There's a lot of misunderstanding
yeah,
and from that kind of teaching.
yeah. Well, and
Oh, I get riled up about that.
it's dismissive. Like it's
Very.
minimizing people's pain because, oh, since you created your pain, well, then we don't have to have any empathy for you, right?
Right.
Because that's like you said, Lee, people are uncomfortable with something they don't understand or they can't control. So let's just dismiss it instead, and then I don't have to have a part in it. I
Right.
don't have to offer support, which you don't have to anyway, right? There's not that, it's not that you have to anyway, but it's just very dismissive and minimizing because, oh, you did this yourself. Okay, well, let's just talk about that for a second. So that means I also created my daughter's death, right? That's where we're going to go with this.
Mm.
So that means I don't deserve support, love during my most traumatic time in my life because I manifested and created this reality. Fuck off, dude. Seriously?
I think too, like I always kind of look at it like, all right, let's go on the hypothetical that not what you're talking about, like, your daughter's death or anything like that, but just someone in general, like, is having a shitty experience. And
Mm-hmm.
let's go on the hypothetical that they are creating that some way in their life. Like they are harboring and embodying so much negativity that they're, but they are genuinely having a really hard time and they're trying to express that. Like I am having
Yeah,
such a hard time. What is the benefit in then telling that person in that moment when they are in a vulnerable place,
right.
hey, you're creating all this, by the way, because all that does is really invalidate and dismiss them, whether it is true or not.
Right.
Um,
Maybe they are creating some frequency of change somewhere, and that is an important part of the step, right? Regardless, where's your fucking humanity in that moment? Good job. Good job for being there. Way to
right.
dismiss them and just be a dick.
And I think, like I said, it's just a way, I think a lot of people probably subconsciously shut down the conversation where it's like, we
Yeah.
don't we don't always know how to say I'm uncomfortable holding this for myself.
Yeah.
So instead of realizing that and communicating that or navigating it differently, I'm just going to shut it down with, well,
Right.
it sounds like this is your fault,
Right. Yeah.
in so many words.
Which is so many times I heard that from even when I was in abusive relationships, like really nasty ones, right? So much physical abuse, all the things was happening, control, all the isolation, all the things was happening. And I can't tell you how many times I heard, well, just leave. If you don't leave, it's your fault. Well, Susan, if it was that easy to leave, I would have thought of that 20 fucking years ago. Like, thanks, right? So, like, yeah, I think it's just people are not qualified to offer some sort of help in that moment, and it's easier just to like shun you. So,
And not understanding all that goes on with
Mm.
abusive relationships. Like I know I
right.
had a conversation with somebody and she goes, well, when if she leaves,
They
he
don't,
has to pay support. And I'm like, yes, but
mhm.
you also have to get a lawyer. And if you're,
And it
let's say
takes time.
you're a stay-at-home wife and mother, you don't have a job, you don't have credit, you don't have any money. How do you just leave and go get your own apartment and pay for that
You don't.
while you're going to the lawyer and drafting up the separation agreement and going through that? You can't just do that if that's the situation, right?
Yeah.
So it's like people don't think of these things,
Yeah,
especially if
because
they haven't
they,
had to.
yeah. Well, and there's protective orders. So, like in my situation, there was protective orders in place because of the abuse and the violence. And by the way, asking for child support meant I was going to get retaliation. That man was coming for me. So it's nothing what people think it is, right? That man was coming for me and now we were unsafe again, right? So people don't think about all the ramifications, all the pieces that are involved. It's just, there's so much to it.
Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't take into account either. Oh, sorry, Stephanie, were you going to say something?
Oh, no, I just said, yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't want to cut you off, but people don't take into account, like in those situations either, like the multi layers of psychological elements that happen. You are intertwined with this person, not just physically, maybe in a domestic experience, but in psychological way. And someone who is being abusive to someone else typically has a lot of mentally abusive tactics in play that over and it doesn't just happen overnight. Someone doesn't just, wake up and typically, right? I won't speak for every experience, but typically it's not just this like drastic change all of a sudden in the very beginning where it's like, oh, okay, maybe you're not for me.
Right.
Sometimes maybe, but it happens over a gradual course of
Well,
time.
yeah, you get groomed. There is a
Right.
process. It's abuse and dangerous for a fucking reason. Like, yeah,
So I think people now don't take that into account either, that unless you've been in a similar circumstance, you don't really understand it. And I think again, that's where people get very uncomfortable, where it's like, well, I can't sit with this, so I'm just gonna like maybe suggest that it's your fault or you should just leave, or I'm gonna try to simplify it in a way that is in this nice little box with this nice little bow so that
yeah,
I feel more comfortable about your situation and I don't have to meet myself in that place.
yeah,
And you know, it
Or
is
their
what it
brains,
is.
because
But
they never experienced that. Like it takes that skill or that thinking differently of like, okay, I have not experienced this. Doesn't mean that that's not that person's experience. And like for me,
right.
people would say, Stephanie, why don't you speak up for yourself? Why don't you say, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was literally brought up with confusion. It
Mm,
was a lot of shame and putting it back on me. So whenever I would try to stand up for myself and somebody was really good at twisting that around, I'd go, oh, I guess I'm wrong.
mhm.
And that takes, first of all, getting out of those situations and then taking critical thinking, healing, working on my own, working on my own voice and stuff like that. And going, wait a minute, you don't get to turn that back around on me. But that takes time and stuff like that. Whereas before, people were like, why don't you just? And
yeah.
this is
And
one
on
thing
top
that
of
I'm like,
it,
there is no just.
yeah, there's not. And on top of that taking time, you can't heal in the same environment that broke you. So that doesn't even happen until you're out
Yeah.
away from your abuser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some people too, I think, are just master gaslighters as well. And I know gaslighting is a term I think that a lot of people throw around now. I don't think gaslighting is just disagreeing with someone or having a different recollection of events. I think sometimes that happens, and now we're throwing the term gaslighting at people, which is a different story. But as a
I
side
think it,
note,
you have to know you're gaslighting. You have to
right,
Yeah.
be the motive is you are doing that. Whereas a lot of people are like,
right,
they're and I did this myself. I'm like, they're gaslighting. No, they're just trying to say something different that's
right,
they don't even know that they're doing that, if that makes, do you know what I mean? Because the movie
right.
Gaslight was he knew exactly he was trying to make her go crazy.
Yeah. He
And
knew what
that's
he
where
was
that term
doing.
came from.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. They threw like narcissism and all that. It's thrown around online without actual is this really what that is?
Right.
Well, but you know
Right.
why it's thrown around online? Because so many of us have co-narcissism based on our work environments, our parents, our family members, our friends,
And there's a
people,
word for it now. You're like, that's what
right?
that was. So it's exciting
Yeah.
that you actually have something to
Yeah.
label it as.
Right. Like
Yeah.
now it makes sense because I've named my bully. I've named my bully, so now there's closure here. There's an understanding here that wasn't here before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do agree with Stephanie that gaslighting is a very intentional decision to repeatedly over, however, whatever period of time, try to distort somebody's reality so that they then question their own kind of beliefs and their own sanity. So I think, I don't know why I was on that in the first place, but I think some people are just really good at that. Oh, the abusive relationship. So I think
Mhm.
that absolutely takes place where, like Stephanie's saying, like you start to question,
Yeah.
you know, and especially like to your point, Stephanie, I like that you brought up sometimes it's like in our upbringing that we are kind of conditioned, whether intentionally by people or unintentionally, but we're conditioned in some way to have our nervous system respond in a certain way, where then it's easier to kind of fall into this pocket of like, oh, well, I guess I am wrong because we've had this whole past
Because
that,
you've literally been trained to doubt yourself. That's really what it
right,
Yeah.
comes down to.
right.
You've been groomed to doubt everything that you say, everything you think, every action you've done. Everything is in place for a reason. So that way you are weakened by your superior, is the way I'm going to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to Stephanie's point, though, I thought that was significant.
Yeah, for sure. So, do we have any last words on this one? Because I'm going to wrap this up and I think we should do some fun rapid fire questions just for shits and grins.
I'm good.
Good?
Me too.
Yeah.
All good? Okay, my only thing I want to say is for anyone that ever hears my mouth running, I am human and I promise there's going to be lots of things that I say that are not politically correct. But if I rub you wrong, hey, reach out. You'll see how human I am and how much compassion I have. So there's that. So so
And
let's
I
do
can attest, April is very soothing to my nervous system. As we've been working together on some stuff, and then I get all nervous, like, what if she's mad at me? But then you're always like, oh, I'm not like,
I'm
not
like,
that I think you're mad, but
yeah, right.
I get stressed about like, what if this is not good enough, or I don't have it in time for you? And then I'm like, oh my God. But you're always like, oh, it's wonderful. It's
I'm
fine.
like, take your time, do your thing. I want to
And
see
that
what you
helps me.
create. Yeah. No, it's
April's
awesome.
April's really good about letting you know where she stands too, which is
Yeah.
something I appreciate. Like it's never like a guesswork, which if it was guesswork, that would be unhealthy, I would imagine, where it's like, well, is this person like mad and they're just not saying it? Now they're being passive aggressive. But so that's unhealthy, but like really good about just kind of being like, no, this is where I stand with this. And like I'll communicate that. So
Yeah, I
Yeah.
usually do.
You're
I'll,
very
I'll
good at
just
that.
be like, because I think that because for me, that's my love language, right?
yeah,
Like I'm not trying to waste anyone's time, and I don't want to like we all value our time, right? So like I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm not gonna buffer or soften the blow. I mean I am gonna speak with compassion and I'm gonna
right.
lead with compassion, but I am gonna be real clear about my communication because that's my love language.
And
Yeah.
actually, I heard, I think it was on Simon Sinek's podcast, they were talking about being that's kind. And a lot of
Yeah,
times we're conditioned, we're taught to be nice, but
right.
nice is not necessarily kind.
Totally.
Nice might be like, oh, you've got a booger falling out of your nose, and I'm going to tell you because that's not nice. Being kind would be like, dude, you got a booger coming out of your nose. And so, like, something like that. And so I've always been nice, telling people what they want to hear. And I'm like, that's unhealthy. I want to be kind, but also tell the truth, right?
Hmm.
Truth and love kind of thing. And so that is kind what you do because, like you're saying, it's just,
Because like Lee said, there's no guesswork. Like
yeah,
Right.
you're gonna have the information you need.
Which, just as a really quick note, is exactly what I look for in my relationships at this point in my life. I don't want there to
Yeah.
be any guesswork. My
Yeah.
expectation of someone in a relationship, whether again they can hold space for this or not, is a different story. But my expectation is that you will communicate with me in a way that feels healthy for the both of us, and in a way that there is no guesswork, like that it's not going to come out passive aggressively, that it's not going to, we're not going to build resentment behind the scenes, that there is a clear, concise communication that happens that feels good for both parties involved. So
Yeah.
I can always appreciate when someone holds that space.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys, because Lee has definitely caught me saying some things and been like, hey, dude, I mean, I love you and I know you and I know you didn't mean it like that. But like, I'm always glad that you have my back, because I don't think that same way, right? Like, it doesn't always occur to me. And then Stephanie is a new person in my life, and she's already been so much fun and offered so many, like, so much blessings and encouragement in my life, and really like stepped in to help me with some things that are really important to me right now. And I'm looking forward to our connection too.
It's super fun. It's super fun creating with you and just being like, yay. But yeah.
It is fun. I like that you can just like go do your creative thing. And I'm like, just go do be you, girl. I'm sure it'll be fine. And then it is. It was. It was fucking
Yeah.
great.
Super cool.
Okay.
Now I'm a little nervous about rapid fire because I'm like, sometimes my brain doesn't go like that.
You
Okay.
got it, Stephanie.
It's
You
good.
got it.
It's good. It's good. And also, we probably won't have time to do too many anyway. So I'm gonna see. Let's see. One of these is weirdest thing someone's asked you as a psychic, which I love that question, but since that might not pertain to all of us right now, I'm like, no offense, Stephanie. I'm not trying to say that, but like, you might not feel like right about answering that. So um, maybe we can like change it to like one of the weirdest things someone's ever asked you.
Hmm. Who wants to go first? Do we have an
Or
order?
how about this? Let's change it. Let's go question you secretly hate being asked.
Hmm.
Let's go with that one.
What are you doing today? Okay, I go to the bank, and I know that they're supposed to ask that, or when I go to the chiropractor or whatever. Oh, and what are you doing today? Well, because I'm like, I don't have like a regular job type thing, and I've been doing podcasting and writing and different things. Sometimes I'm actually not doing anything but going to that appointment and maybe one day, and then I'm like, oh, not much. I don't know. I just feel, does that make sense?
Like small talkish.
Oh, I hate small talk.
Oh
That's what
God.
Um,
was on my radar too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so sometimes I just like, oh, I'm not doing too much, or I can't think in the moment of all these things. Like if I tell you every little detail, that's not really what you're asking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, small talk.
Small talk's so excruciating, like gross.
It
Yeah.
is.
Actually, that is a subject Lee can get on right now for sure.
I used to work at a bank, and as a bank teller, we had to make a connection with every customer and constant small talk. Oh, how are you enjoying the weather today? And I'm like, I am so
Uh,
fucking tired of these kind of talk conversations.
yeah, thank you. Like, ew, gag me. Get
Uh,
out of here. Is there any depth to you? My God.
yeah.
Like you're boring.
My answer would be the same. I think it's definitely like similar to that small talk. I can't hold space for it. I know that it's like something that we do, and I get it, and there's not a judgment about it, but I have such a hard time holding space for it. I do. So yeah.
Yeah, and one of the ones that's come up for you actually is like when somebody's like, how was it put? How are you doing? But then they didn't actually want to hear how you were doing.
Yeah.
Isn't that our general North American greeting? Hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Fine, how are you? You guys do that in the
Yeah.
States, right?
Yeah. How you
I
doing?
mean, it
Good.
depends
How
on
are
what
you?
state you're in, because some are more friendly than others,
Well,
True.
that's a
True.
very
right? So it
Canadian thing,
depends.
at least. So it's
Yeah,
just like, hi,
yeah,
how are you? But nobody really cares. It drives my dad crazy.
yeah.
They
Like,
don't care. I'm like, Dad, it's just a greeting we do. I don't know why we do it.
We just do.
We
Yeah.
just do. It's annoying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm.
Do I need to answer that one too?
If you
If you
want,
want.
Trying to
you have
decide.
total autonomy.
I do. I'll answer it. One of the things that something that I hate being asked is like, when somebody's like, "Oh, what do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a psychic medium and I'm a life coach and I'm a nanny. I do all these things." And they're like, "Oh, you're a psychic. Read me. What does it say? Like, blah, blah, blah. What's my future?" And I'm like, "So that's great. I'm glad to hear that you're enthusiastic, but there's a protocol. Book an appointment like the rest of the world. Thank you." Like like it's like I appreciate that we're inspired here, but like yeah, I'm not working right now, but thank you. So
Yeah.
so that one drives me crazy. I'm like, yeah, there's I've got
That's how
this
I imagine
I've got
like
business hours like everybody else.
therapists and doctors, people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you're a doctor. Can
Mm.
you look at this thing?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Woo. Um, Something that makes you laugh when you're spiraling,
Oh God.
right? Like I have to think about that one too.
I don't know. I mean, for me, probably something sarcastic or that's leaning towards darker humor, to be honest. I
Sarcastic and dry stuff gets you.
just gets me
It
so much.
does. It so
Uh,
does.
and sometimes again, depending on my mood, maybe something leaning more towards like darker humor, because I think darker humor kind of holds a certain space that, I like it's honest, like there's an honesty about it, but we're also finding this room to kind of like laugh about, so I like that piece of it.
Yeah.
Probably that.
Okay. Dude, Stephanie, if you say South Park, I'm gonna die laughing.
oh, Cartman.
Right?
Sorry, I love Cartman.
Oh my
Because I was
God,
trying to
Jeff
think,
does too. Jeff watched South Park too. He loves that shit.
yay. Also this past few seasons politically have been hilarious. But TV, I was gonna say The Office, but I've seen that way too many times to really laugh anymore, I think.
Hmm.
Although the
Mm-hmm.
stress relief episode where there's the fire, Dwight makes the fire, and then they're all, I think that still like makes me laugh every time. So
Hmm.
like, stuff of comedians and stuff like that. I don't know. But yeah, Cartman.
Cartman's good.
Love it.
Okay, let's see. Um, hold on one second. Okay, loudest no that your body has ever given you.
Oh. I had something come up recently, actually. Like that was really interesting. So just really quick, because I want to be mindful of time. But I used to listen to not a lot of people know this about me, but April I think does. But like if anyone's familiar with black metal, like it's like really heavy, really dissonant sounding, like angry music. And I used to listen to that a lot. And I'm actually exploring that a little bit now. I feel like there was a bit of a me feeling pulled to the truth aspect of it, the inner state matching the outer state sort of thing. Not that it's not maybe misguided somewhat, but there's a truth about it. There's truth without anesthesia, right? So anyway, I tried to listen to one of the songs that I used to listen to, one of the bands, actually it's a newer song, but one of the band songs, and it was an instant no from my body. Like I started to physically gag. It was the strangest, but it was the biggest no. I was like, okay, time to shut this off. So that comes to mind because that was recent, but definitely a huge, tremendous no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my answer.
That's a good one. Like full, like hard stop.
Hard no.
Yeah,
Just
hard
like,
no.
ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, no, not anymore, I guess.
Oh, when I lived in Toronto, I dated this guy and it was on and off. It was such a bad relationship. Like he would always break up. Like anyway, um, and he wasn't that nice to me. So, but the very last time I actually saw him, because I was like, I miss you. And then we got back together for an afternoon and whatever. It was like, but as I left his place, I was just like, oh, I was so over it. And I was like, I've never, no.
That
So
was your
it was just like, oh, ew.
yeah. Like
Yeah.
How
your
could I have
body
liked
was
him?
yeah, your body was saying, "Okay, we're done here."
Yes, and I was finally free of him. It felt so amazing. But then when I got home, he texted me, he goes, I don't think it'll work out. I'm like, damn it. I was gonna beat him to it, but he beat me to it. The final time, he always broke up with me, and I was like, damn it. I wish I had just done it, but yeah.
Either way, it was still
It was
a blessing in disguise and
clean
bye-bye.
cut. And I was
Yeah,
like, okay, I'm so over you now.
that's so
Big
funny.
enough.
You,
Uh,
April?
what was the question? Oh yeah.
What's the biggest no your body has told you?
Oh God, so many times. Um, well, unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way about a lot of things in life. So sometimes my body would tell me no, and I'd be like, but yes, and we're going to do it anyway. And so it didn't matter. I was like going to run it over and do the thing and learn the hard way. However, I don't really live that life anymore. I would say the loudest no I ever had came down to a moment when this is actually a true story. And I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's a big story. Um, I was almost either assaulted or murdered by someone. And in that moment, I did not know that this person was planning on hurting me. And I had my back turned to them. And my 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 guides at the time had to like really get my attention. So like my ear was going off. I had a migraine and I was like all dizzy and weird. And I literally heard their voice say, "Get up now." And it was so loud and it shook my head so hard that I was like, at that moment, I couldn't deny what just had happened. It almost exploded my body because the voice was so loud, like thunder. And I was like, oh my God, God just yelled at me. And I jumped up from where I was. I grabbed my keys. It was like 2 in the morning. This was years ago, by the way. Grabbed my keys. It was like 2 in the morning, and I'm rushing towards the door. And I'm like, this man's going to hurt me. And so I had my keys like this in my hand just in case I had to fight for my life. And I was rushing towards the door, and he's like, where are you going? And he was like right on my ass, like trying to get me and like catch up with me. And he was like, what? I don't understand. I was like, get away from me, get away from me. And I remember going home, driving that whole wreck in a full panic attack. I ended up filing a police report and all kinds of stuff. But that was probably like the loudest, unmistakable, like, no I've ever heard. And I thought my body was going to explode. It was like if you can picture like Mufasa when he's like Simba, right? Like it was like way like this big fucking thundering voice that like almost exploded my body. And I was like, okay, I guess I can't deny that one. So I had to leave. Like it was like so loud I couldn't deny it. And who knows what would have happened had I stayed because it took a lot for my soul team to even get that message through to me because I was like, la la la, I like to ignore everything. Like so so I don't know what would have happened to me had I not jumped up. This is crazy. Crazy no.
Wow.
That's that's a big no. I know that story, and you've told me more about that, but definitely that's a big one.
It's a
Yeah.
big one. I actually probably should talk about some of these stories on the podcast. I feel like I need to like just come on here sometimes and share portal stories and angels and guides talking to you stories, like just different. Yeah.
That kind of sharing those things are so encouraging because it just I always love hearing those kind of things, right? Because you're just like, yes, it
Because
reminds you that
yes, it's
you're being
gonna
protected and
feel insane, but it's so important for you to just trust the process. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah.
Okay, things you're done apologizing for. We're
That's a
gonna, by the way, we're ending with this question. This is the last one.
that's a good one. Do you want to go first, Stephanie?
I think just being me and
Mm.
having my own beliefs. I remember a few years ago there was a friend of my parents I met and they're like, "Oh, what church do you go to? Or do you go to what church do you go to or something?" I don't know. And I was like, "Oh, I don't go to any." But sometimes I listened online to this one church because I had to get that, "Oh, but."
Hmm.
And then I was like, "No, I don't have to I can just say, no, I don't go to church anymore, which I do now. But back then, that was a few years ago, I was like, I have to justify or say something because that was a deeply ingrained. If you're not going to church, like, rah, 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 rah. You
Yeah,
need to be. And so now I'm like, I'm allowed to not have that belief anymore and not go to church. And it's none of your business. I don't say
totally.
that, but I'm just like, no, I don't go. I'm not
Yeah.
Yeah,
apologizing for it.
I love that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
There's freedom in that.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I think mine's similar, honestly. Like just stop apologizing for being me. I've also tried to stop like I mean, I think I've really done it mostly at this point, but like years ago, and sometimes it still kind of creeps in a little bit. Like I'll find myself just in regular conversation being like, oh, sorry, for like something that I don't need to be sorry at all about, which I guess falls under the umbrella of like, stop apologizing for being me. Um, but so that as well, like I've stopped kind of doing that. But I think just being me and also having boundaries, like that was always something I think I was kind of conditioned to believe that, I don't know, was selfish or that we shouldn't have or whatever. And now I'm like, no, give me all the boundaries, like, and stop apologizing for having them.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing is like when people can't manipulate you to be a version that they want you to be, that, there's a lot of kickback, right? When we have those boundaries and they're like, oh, you're not the person I thought you were, or you're not the same person I used to know. And it's like, get over it. You want a tissue? I don't know what to tell you. Like,
Well, yeah, like that's the point too. Like I'm not the
right,
same person you used to know. Like that's the point. I evolved,
right. It's like you should try it sometime. Growing is
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. I invite you to come to this side, but
Yeah,
And I
right.
am not here for you. I am here for me on this
Yeah.
yeah,
earth.
Back to that autonomy.
Yes.
I would say, based on the topic we're talking about, I'm definitely done apologizing for shrinking. Like I'm not gonna, I don't want to, uh, I don't want to live that life where I'm constantly feeling like I have to walk on eggshells or people please or whatever. And so I'm still trying to learn how to compromise and recognize those places where those exchanges can happen without feeling like I'm settling or shrinking or watering down a version of myself. So yeah,
mm, yeah,
yeah.
Awesome.
Good times, good times. Okay, guys, you guys ready to say goodbye?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you guys. We'll see you
Yeah,
guys next time.
bye.
Bye.